Good evening, everyone. Am I audible? Strange. Okay. Okay. I hope I am audible as well as the PPT is clearly visible, everyone. Chali, everyone. Let's begin with the session, everyone. First of all, I hope you have already gone through the good news that your examination has been postponed by 20 days in terms of AFM and other examinations as well in terms of your IE and FS examination is now on 8th of June. Sorry, 9th of June. RBWM is on 8th of June, right? Then we have on 16th we have our examination of PPB, and last is ours, that is accounting and financial management for bankers. So I think you have got pretty good time to prepare properly, but that doesn't mean that we should actually delay the preparation starting, because postponement will not help you. That's one of my thought processes. I don't know how do you look at it, because you have got 62 days. If I 61 actually, calculating it from that particular day. To be very honest, I think if you say that you have around 62 days, out of that 62 days, I think if we keep around 2 weeks, there are overall 4 days in terms of Sundays and 2 Saturdays per month. So in that case, you have got 8 Sundays and roughly and 4 Saturdays. So 8 plus 4, that means around 12 holidays that you can have, है ना, in this examination. Out of those 62 days, if you have got around 12 days in terms of your holiday part, and that too, not every single day is going to be the same. So it's going to be like 61 minus 12 days. You're left with around 49 days. Do you really think out of these 49 days you will study every single day? I've seen my bankers trying a lot hard. I won't say that they don't want to grow. I had seen bankers being terribly unwell, being terribly tired, and sometimes even badly distressed as well. They are hell exhausted, but they still stand up and say, "No, ma'am, I want to study." So, how do you study that way? In the overall examination, you have got 4 subjects, pretty good enough time. 600 pages per subject is there. So, if I talk about 600 pages, everyone, into 4, you have got around 24 pages to cover around 61 days. That means every single day, if you are studying roughly 40 pages a day, then only you are able to cover the entire book, that too on the last day. That means you will not have enough time to cover up the portion of the examination in a proper manner. To be very honest, these are the basic calculations that I will do if I have to study in a specific book. For example, that's how I study sometimes. That if I have got a book of 600 pages and I want to finish it in 30 days, so every single day I'm supposed to finish 20 pages. If I'm not covering up the 20 pages today, then I have to cover 40 pages tomorrow. This kind of ideology is required when you are looking at your studies in terms of consistency. Without consistency, I don't think I will be able to tell you that nahi, the paper is easy. Nahi, the paper is hard. In any case, consistency is required. Because if I am not consistent in my studies, then the basic problem that occurs is whatever I have studied just now, I'll forget it after 2 days, 3 days, and then I'll be like, oh, I don't even remember. These little things really pays a lot of importance in the long term. Not in the short term, 20 pages miss is not a big problem. Understand, everyone, one particular attempt gone, that means now you will have to wait till November. Your increments are not there. You lose 6 months of increments, right, in terms of till the time you're not giving the examination in November. And if you don't do that in November as well, now you are losing 1 year's increment, and you are also paying for this examination as well. So that means you are actually in the entire year you are losing money instead of gaining money. The opportunity cost and the cost that where you couldn't decide is more. So when you're preparing for this examination, do not put yourself into a vicious circle of feeling bad about yourself. Ki, oh God, why am I not studying properly? So I just want to suggest you that if you have got these days now, understand the value of these days. Make sure that you are putting best foot forward, putting the hard work into this entire area, and you are ready to take the risks. That means you're focusing on your studies, you're focusing on everything together, so that on the last day you don't really have to take a holiday just to study. Those small things really makes a lot of difference on the very last day, right? Chaliye, with this particular pep talk, let's begin with the session. First of all, please share the session, everyone, like the session, and don't forget to share it as well, and subscribe our channel. Acha, oh, forgot to adjust the question there. Just a moment. I hope the question is visible now. Debt equity ratio is 3 is to 1. This is a practical question based upon the debt equity ratio is 3 is to 1. The amount of total assets is 20 lakhs. The current ratio is 1.5. And the owned funds of the organization is 3 lakhs. What is the amount of current asset? If I look at these kind of questions, I will say this is a question which is related to the area of case study based. This can be covered in a multiple area. Debt equity ratio is 3 is to 1. And the question said our owned fund are 3 lakh. So it's fine. Debt divided by 3 is equal to 3 divided by 1. This gives my debt is 9 lakhs. Now if this comes out to be 9 lakhs, then what are we left with? Our total assets are of 20 lakhs. Okay, if the total assets are of 20 lakhs, out of which our long-term debt is 9 lakh, we're left with 11 lakhs. Out of that 11 lakhs, our equity portion is basically something that I can say is a 3 lakh. So equity is 3, then you are 11 minus 3, you will get the remaining 8 lakh rupees. This is your current liability. If your current liability is 8 lakh, then what is the amount of your current asset? Everyone, what did I do? In the balance sheet, when the total is given, this is a very, very important question. If you look at the total liabilities is equal to total assets, from which if you remove the long term debt and also remove the long term capital in the business, that is your equity, it is actually long term only, even if I don't use this term. So you have got 20 lakhs, you remove the total debt. Total debt is of 3 lakhs. Total equity is of, this is a 9. Total debt is of 9 lakh. Equity is of 3 lakh. The current liabilities we are left with is 20 minus 9 minus 3. That means 8 lakhs is the remaining portion of our current liabilities. Once you find your current liabilities, out of this current liability, what will I do? I'll take up this current liability and take current asset, and this is 1.5 is to 1. So in this case, can I say this is CA divided by 8 lakh is equal to 1.5 divided by 1. So that comes out to be 1.5 multiplied by 8 will give us the answer. That comes out to be 12 lakhs. It's a very interesting question. I would say this is a question which is a blend of multiple questions. That means the question can ask you what is the total amount of current liability. The question can ask you that what is the total amount of debt. Matlab, there are multiple questions which I can create out of this. This particular question has the capacity to become a case study in the examination. Good evening, sir. Done, everyone? Done? Chaliye, let's move on to the next question now. The answer is 12 lakhs. So the answer was visible earlier as well, but if I look at these kind of questions now, these are good questions of good level. This is not an easier level for sure. This is a higher level question. Everyone got the idea? Chali. Now let's move on and talk about the next question. The next question talks about the area of in the balance sheet, the total assets are of 10 lakhs. The total assets are of 10 lakhs. Current liabilities are of 5 lakhs. Capital and reserves, this is capital and reserves are of 2 lakhs. मतलब equity wala portion is equal to 2 lakhs. And the question is asking about what is the debt equity ratio. Everyone? What's going to be the answer? Now look at this part. We need to find the debt equity ratio. How do we find the debt equity ratio? I think I can find the equity. What is the amount of equity, everyone? As per the equity area, how do we find it? I think I can find the equity if my total assets or total assets is equal to total liabilities is equal to rupees 10 lakhs. है ना? This is the total amount that we have. Now, how do we find the other part, everyone? This part is obviously clear. Okay, achha, this is a total assets is equal to total liabilities that we are trying to find. Current liabilities are of rupees 5 lakhs. Can I take out the current liabilities out of it? Current liabilities will give us the portion of our long-term parts only. That means the long-term part in the organization is only of 5 lakh. And the capital and reserves are of rupees 2 lakh. Matlab the reserves and the capital. This is the shareholder part. This is equity. Equity is of 2 lakh. You remove that 2 lakhs as well, na? That gives us 3 lakhs. In this case, can I say my equity part was 2, which is given in the question, while my debt part was 3, which is 3 by 2. In this case, the answer comes out to be 1.5:1. A very good level question again. Everyone, normally what I do is I put up the difficult questions by the end. But I think today in the very beginning, we're able to cover some questions which are of very good quality in the sense that these questions have multiple things coming out of it. Not one, not two, but multiple answers coming out of it. So this is also case study level question. Okay, so in this case, my answer comes out to be 1.5:1. Technically, the debt equity ratio is going to be 3:2. The answer is 1.5:1. The answer that I've given is wrong. The answer is B. Okay. See, sometimes these two questions have the capability to become at least three questions each as a set in the examination. So if you are spending this much amount of time in this area, na, I think you are good to go. Done? Chali. Now let's move on to the next question. The excess of current ratio is also treated as a sign of managerial. Excess of current ratio. Acha everyone, if I was required only a specific amount, but I was having multiple amount, I was having an amount which exceeds the basics. The excess of current ratio is also treated as a sign of managerial efficiency or inefficiency. A lot of money which I possess, which I'm not even using, is just there in my wallet, which will not even multiply, means it is clearly inefficiency on the part of the manager. Isn't it, everyone? If you are having too much of cash in your pocket, why is this money not in the market? If this money is not invested in the market, that means definitely I'm doing something extremely wrong now. That is to be covered as inefficiency. Done. Next question. The inventory ratio is relationship between. Inventory ratio is basically ITR, inventory turnover ratio. The turnover ratio which uses the formula COGS upon average stock or sales, which is also known as revenue from operations divided by average stock. Here the term average stock is equal to opening stock plus closing stock divided by 2. Cost of goods sold and the cost of average inventory. Cost of goods purchased and the cost of average inventory. Cost of goods sold and cost of average inventory, and cost of goods purchased and the cost of average inventory, or none of the above. In this case, the correct answer is A. The cost of goods sold and the cost of average inventory. Next question, everyone. A company's quick ratio is 1.5:1. Current liabilities are 2 lakh and inventory of 1,80,000. Current ratio will be 9:1. I just gave this 2 point same. This is 8:1 and this is 6:1. Okay, just changing these points a bit. My mistake. This is 9:1 and this is 7:1. This is 4. This is 4.5. Done, everyone? What's going to be the answer? We have got the quick ratio in this question and we have also got the other ratio. Let's look at it. Quick ratio is 1.5:1. 1.5:1 matlab. In this case, can I find out 1.5:1 is equal to the current liabilities were of 2 lakh. What is the amount of quick assets, everyone? That is 1.5 into 2. That is rupees 3 lakh. My quick assets are of rupees 3 lakh. In this, add back 1,80,000 because this will give us the total current assets, because current assets and quick assets, the difference between the two is we do not include the quick assets. Once we have got this 4,80,000, then divide by the current liabilities, 2 lakh. 4,80,000. Hello everyone, welcome to Officer 24/7. My name is Niharika Walia Bhatnagar and I am with you with the area of AFM, Accounting and Financial Management for Bankers. I hope you are all having a good day, everyone. Let's proceed further. Before I look forward towards the class further there, first of all, please share the session, like the session, and don't forget to subscribe our channel if you haven't done it yet. Secondly, I had a particular session yesterday with you regarding income tax. If you like that session, then please go ahead and click on the like button and also share it. It was complete direct taxes in one shot. So kindly go through that particular topic and keep on learning, everyone. There are more of these topics to come further, right? Today we are going to talk about working capital. We'll be talking about working capital management overall. That's one of the chapters of our module C. So let's proceed and find it out. Okay, everyone, here comes the first question. What are the general classifications of current assets required in the field of firm, everyone? Current assets includes cash, inventory, fixed assets, cash, receivables and payables, cash, inventory, receivables and other current assets, or cash, investments and liabilities. What would be the answer? See, cash, inventory, fixed assets. Fixed assets is a intangible or a tangible asset. Fixed assets are tangible assets. What's going to be the answer? When we talk about it, the second point is the cash receivables as well as payables. This is a current liability. Then the next point that we have here is cash, inventory, receivables and other current assets. So I think in this area we have got more of the points there, isn't it? As in the first case we are having lesser number. The second case we have greater ones. है ना? So in this case the correct answer is going to be other current assets, cash, inventory. These are all the assets which are to be converted into these can be converted into cash within a period of 1 year or one operating cycle, whichever is longer. So in this case the correct answer is C. Next point everyone, which factor influences the need for working capital in the business related to the nature of business, size of business, production policy, seasonal variations or type of business? See, I think in the goods and services there's a difference between the two. If I am having a production of goods, then things are different. Things are definitely different for me again. What is the difference between the two, everyone? Can you tell me? See, when we talk about goods, the goods are required to be produced, so you need a good manufacturing unit. You need a lot of working capital for the payment of your labor workers as well. And you need to do so many things there. While when we talk about the services, in services we don't really have to go through all this. There's one particular thing that is absolutely clear about. That is, you don't really have to go through all these things when you are producing a service, when you're providing a service, right? So in this case, what's going to be the answer? It is types of goods or the services offered. Done now? Chaliye. Which type of sources are preferable for bringing the margin money or the NWC, that is net working capital? Short-term sources like trade credit, short-term loans from the banks, long-term sources like equity, capital or debt capital, or retained earnings. When we talk about net working capital, that means the working capital that we are having in the business to run it, to make it more operable. Operable, that too on a daily basis, not on this monthly, weekly or yearly basis, or not even bi-yearly or semi-annually, I can say. This is the money that we need on a daily basis. For example, we need to pay our sweepers every month, you know. Then we need cash payments for the production there. We need to pay our casual labors, the minor major repairs which are always going on in the organization. You need money for the daily milk that is being consumed by the workers there. You buy that particular milk for the people there. You have cooks, you have got people who are working in the organization which are doing pitiable jobs, and they are to be paid in priority. And that too, sometimes the creditors would be standing on a head on a random day that I need my money right now, I have to make some payments. Then you are bound. You cannot cry about the fact. Right? So in this case, what do we get, everyone? Short-term sources for the trade credit. Then the second point would be the short-term loans from the banks. Long-term sources like equity or debt capital or retained earnings? The answer is long-term sources like equity or debt capital. Okay. So when we're talking about which type of sources are preferable for bringing, if we need short-term funds, the regular money that we need in the business, then it is better that you look forward towards the long-term money for your business so that you can take care of your short-term needs in a better way. Then, why is it important for a firm to finance the reasonable portion of its total current assets through long-term sources of finance? We were just talking about it in the previous question. But what happens is if we take some long-term loans, at least we don't really have to pay it right away. There's no pressure that you have just taken a loan and you have to repay it. To avoid the liquidity crunch, to increase the profit margin, or to decrease the current need for short term loans, or to decrease the risk of bankruptcy. So, in this case, what is going to be the answer? In this case, the correct answer is to avoid liquidity crunch. We don't at least have to pay on a short term basis today or tomorrow. That is what we are looking forward to. है ना? चलिए, now let's move on to the next question. Which of the following is an example of an accrual? Accrual means the money that we are yet to pay. We haven't paid it yet. Payment made for goods purchased, the salary paid to an employee at the end of the month, electricity bill paid immediately upon consumption, or tax paid to the government before earning the profits. Everyone? What's gonna be the answer? When you talk about accrual, accrual means which is yet to be paid. The payment made for purchase, goods purchase, salary paid to an employee at the end of the month. Okay, but it is paid. Then electricity bill paid immediately upon consumption, again it is paid. Tax paid to the government. The point is that we are yet to make some payments. That is what we're looking forward to it. Now, accrual can be outstanding expenses or incomes. वैसे तो accrual term is actually used for the income that we are yet to receive. So in this case, that's why tax paid to the government before earning a profit. If we pay in advance, we are in a better situation because in this case, the plus point would be at least we don't have to pay in future that way. We have already made some payments already. So then there's a relief. The government can be stated that I've already made partial payments. What factors determine the amount of trade credit provided by the suppliers? Industry practice and payment record of the firm, industry practice and liquidity position of the firm, payment record and liquidity position of the firm, industry practice, payment record and the liquidity position of the firm. What factors determine the amount of trade credit provided by the suppliers? Trade credit is basically the amount where the creditor says it's okay now, don't pay us right now, you can pay the amount little later. So in this case, the answer is going to be industry practice, payment record, as well as the liquidity position of the firm. How does the liquidity position of the firm affects in negotiation? Everyone, if I have good money and if I ask you to provide me a loan, you won't have a problem with me because you know I'll be making the payment in any case. है ना? So in this case, what is going to be your answer? In this case, when you're trying to look forward towards the answer, it has no impact on negotiation. It has. If you have good money, you can get more money. That's one of the rules. What's going to be the answer? A firm negotiations for higher credit period for its liquidity position of the cup is comfortable, or the second point is, and then we have a firm negotiates for a higher current credit period for its liquidity position is not comfortable, and then is a firm negotiates for its reduced credit period for its liquidity position is not comfortable. When we talk about negotiations, it's going to be related to the area of higher credit period for if its liquidity position is not comfortable. What are inter-corporate deposits? Long-term deposits accepted by the company from another company. Or next is short-term deposits of up to 6 months accepted by the company for another company. Deposits accepted by the company for its shareholders, or deposits accepted by a company for its customers. In this case, what's going to be the answer? The short-term deposits of up to 6 months accepted, right, by the company for another company. The maximum that you can have is 6 months. So that means you don't really have a long term, you just have a short term one. What is the purpose of issuing the rights debentures by public limited company to their shareholders? That is to provide short-term funds for working capital requirements, to provide long-term funds for working capital requirements, to provide long-term funds for expansion of products, or to provide short-term funds for expansion of products. When we talk about the rights are basically the situations where you have a certain you So if you can do only a certain amount of things, that is defined as debentures. Rights is basically in terms of loan, lenders who has given us loan, they can actually help us in working through the particular scenario there. What they can do is they can help us growing. So when you talk about the rights of the debentures, they can definitely come up and ask where are we using our funds, right? So in this case, they provide long-term funds to the business, and if we are using to provide long-term funds for working capital requirements before we get more funds, so sometimes we use it for bridge financing as well. So for that we take short-term loans, but this is also there. Done. Everyone, if you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, then hurry up and subscribe to our channel right away. And everyone, one more thing, you can also review our courses. Our current batches are already going on for JIB, and we are planning another set of these classes there. If you're planning, then hurry up. You should enroll it right away because the time is ticking away, and every single moment is extremely important, isn't it? Chaliye, let's move on and talk about the next question. Acha, what is the minimum credit rating for the issuance of a commercial paper? This question can be asked in the examination. That these they have started giving all these questions, though these are in point 0.5, but they are still there. AAA, A plus, A3, or BBB. When we talk about the commercial paper is basically a situation where you can raise good money and pay good money, right? That is what we look forward to. So in this case, the answer is going to be A3. You need to have the credit rating of A3 if you want to raise the money through CP. CP basically is an unsecured loan. So that's you should be having good enough money in your pocket to pay it off that way. What is the factoring in context to finance? A method of financing the payables of the business enterprise, a method of financing the inventories of business enterprise, a method of financing the receivables, or a method of financing the fixed assets. Factoring is basically collecting the funds from the people on behalf of the company. So in this case, it is actually the method of financing the receivables of a business enterprise. Chaliye, next question. Which of the following statements regarding the buyback of the commercial paper is true? Buyback can be done before a minimum period of 15 days from the date of issue. Buyback can be done only through the primary market. Buyback can be done at fixed price determined by the issuer. Buyback can be done through the secondary market at the prevailing market price. When we talk about the commercial papers, in this case, there's one rule that buyback can be done through the secondary market. Whosoever would have purchased this, we can actually go back to those people and ask them, please provide us our money, our commercial paper back. Matlab, you can buy it back because now it's time that you can pay off. Then you should go ahead and get done with all these loans. Done, everyone? Chaliye, let's go with the last question before we end. Under what conditions can the issuer buy back commercial papers before maturity? Only after 15 days from the date of issue, only after 30 days, only after 45, or only after 60? In this case, the answer is only after 30 days of the issue. That's the time period that we have in terms of our CP or commercial papers. Okay, everyone, but before I end my session, have you reviewed our courses yet? If you haven't, then hurry up and go ahead and review it. Hello everyone, welcome to Officer 24/7. My name is Niharika Walia Bhatnagar and I am with you with the area of accounting and financial management for bankers. That is, we are here for AFM. Everyone, when we look at this specific area altogether, today I'm going to talk about a very interesting chapter that is called budget and budgetary control. I thought we are done with good number of chapters already, so let's think about this particular area, budget and budgetary control. Do you know what do you mean by budget and budgetary control? Budget is basically the process. Budgetary control is actually no, actually na, there are three terms. The first term is budgeting. Budgeting is the process of noting down what are the expenses, what are the incomes that we are facing. Budgets are basically the books of accounts that we prepare. Budgetary control is basically once you know this is the expense, this is the income. But do we really want this thing to happen? Everyone? I would definitely not want this now. So that's one particular area I'll definitely look forward to it. You know, budgeting is the process where I know okay, this is the expense, this is the income that can come. But when we talk about budgetary control, under budgetary control, I could find out what's exactly happening. And if I know there are expenses, if I know that there are incomes, we need to find out things. है ना? चलिए, based upon this, here comes the first question. What does the budget typically include? Um, Only estimates about the future cost, systematic planning, only income and expenditure or estimates of future costs, expenditures. It's way bigger, everyone. It's way bigger. I cannot say its horizon is totally limited to what we are doing. Its horizon is way extensive. It includes the area of future cost, incomes, expenditures, capital employed. All these things are included. Budgetary control plays a very, very important role. है ना? Next question. Which of the following statements accurately describes a budget? It is a plan expressed in physical units. No, we don't express in physical units only. In monetary terms, better. It is expressed in both money and physical units or neither money or physical units. Acha, it is in money. Indeed, it is in money. But then obviously we have production budgets as well, which talks about number of units that we are producing. So can we say we are totally limited to only the units or totally the expenses or totally the amounts or units altogether? It is not exclusive. It is all inclusive. है ना? So shall we continue further? Let's look at the next question, everyone. What type of budget is prepared for each of the various interrelated functions, activities in the organization, and then consolidated to show the combined budget for all activities? Fixed budget, then we have flexible budget or basic budget or master budget. A budget which is a blend of everything all together is called master budget. This budget actually includes everything that is there in the business. That's a good vibe about it, that this is an inclusive, all inclusive budget. It includes purchase, sales, production, then research and development, because again research and development is also a very important area, right? So we include all these things all together. That is also included. What does the production budget contain? Estimates of material and labor costs, estimates of cash inflows and outflows. Then we have estimates of estimated production quantities of various products or detailed estimates of the overhead costs. Done. If you look at the production budget, this is a budget related to specifically the production of goods. So obviously we would like to know how much material we already have and how much material do we need more. So considering all these areas all together, the value will be the estimated production quantities of various products during the budget period. है ना? Done. Let's move on to the next question. What are the characteristics of fixed budget? Acha everyone, if I tell you I will make 10,000 units means 10,000 units only. I'm not talking about anything else. We are fixed towards this area. In this case, are we saying that we do not want to change, or we are preparing everything as per that particular amount only? This simply means we're preparing everything as per that fixed budget only, na? It changes with the level of activity actually attained. It is adjusted through the actual activity of the activity at a periodic review, or it is designed for a specific planned output level, or it recognizes different cost behavior pattern. What's going to be the answer? I think what are the characteristics of fixed budget? Fixed budget can be said as a budget which is talking about only a specific number of units. That's it. Everything at that level. Matlab, if I take that this is the time slot I have for my classes, it is just a specific amount. And done? Based upon this, let's go to the next question. What are the main differences between basic and current budget? Such a basic is something that is very normal. It happens on a daily basis. That is basic. है ना? In this case, basic is something that is everyday thing. While when we talk about current is the current situation. If I say every day we need to study, that is a basic thing. But on the basis of current thoughts, how am I doing it? I have to look forward to it. So basic budgets are prepared for use over a shorter period of time. Current is actually for longer period. It is actually opposite. Basics are for the base, and the changes are made in the current budget. So in this case, the answer would be basic budgets consider current situations, while current budgets do not mean. Actually, it's opposite. Basic consider overall everything, while current is basically basic are constant and current aren't. So I think this entire question needs to be changed. Alright, everyone. Next point: how is the budget period related to cost control? Everyone. Budget period for control. See, to control something, we need to look at a specific time, na? We need to have a specific time. I need to know what time I'm trying to control. I cannot control everything. The budget is longer than the control period, or control period is longer, or control period is same as budget, or the budget is subdivided into control periods. The correct answer in this case is the budget is subdivided into control period. You cannot control for a longer period. So you have those areas when you will be doing the control part, and you need to control only when there's a deviation. Otherwise, poking someone now every now and then, there would be a lot of trouble. Done? Okay. What is the primary purpose of budgetary control, everyone? Primary purpose of budgetary control. See, I know my expenses of 10,000. If my expenses of 10,000, then do I really accept it, or we need to control it? But with this, I remember one particular thing. There is something called Kaizen. This means continuous improvement. Japanese believe in this. Everyone, I can say ki initially, when we talk about the cost, initially my cost was 10,000. We wish that it can decrease by 5%. That means we come to 9,500. The day we reach 9,500, we try to reach 9,200. The day we reach 9,200, we try to make it 9,100, because most significant changes are already made. Now I can keep on reducing only bit by bit. This is the purpose of budgetary control as well. You cannot have this in one go. Slashing would mean you are compromising on your quality. So to prepare budgets for a future period, to compare actual with the budgets, to monitor actual results without taking into action or revise budgets frequently. In this case, what we're doing is to compare actual budget with the remedial action. We need remedial action to do something. If we do not have a remedy, how will we pursue further? What is the one main advantage of a budgetary control system? It leads to conflicts among the various functionaries. It neglects the personal or human aspect, or it enhances the probability of achieving planned objectives, or it restricts creativity and innovation. One of the main advantages of budgetary control system. Budgetary control system main advantages are it is related to the area of it enhances the probability. If you want to achieve the plan, then you have a greater chance because you have a viewpoint now. You have a goal to achieve and you try to achieve it. That part is very strong here. Then okay, now comes the next pointer. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, then hurry up and subscribe it right away because you might be missing out on the important content regarding the examinations. Acha everyone, on this Sunday I had this income tax based session which was on direct tax. So if you're planning, then kindly go ahead and check it out right away because you will have a good opportunity to study there to revise the entire portion of the direct taxes. So please go ahead and check it out everyone. Okay? Which aspect of organizational functioning does the budgetary control system improve? Creativity and innovation, coordination among the various functionaries, transparency in performance, or conflicts among the various departments. Next point everyone. Coordination among the various functionaries is required because the point is that sometimes we have a very weird contradictions in the organization which is required to be fixed. What is the limitation of budgetary control? It leads to the conflicts among the various functionaries. Actually, this can happen. If I belong to Department A, Department B has their own goals and budgets, and one of the parties will say, this is not something that we want. So they will fight. It neglects the personal or human aspect of the business. It encourages delegation of authority, or it enhances the probability of achieving planned objectives. The limitations can be said as it neglects the personal or human aspect of the business. How can you always say that, Niharika ma'am, you have to take 6th class every single day? Can it happen that every single day I have 6 hours of working fixed in a certain manner? Sometimes you have to go for 4, sometimes you have to go for 6, sometimes you have to go for 5.5 even. This is something that talks about human touch. है ना? Screen time can increase, screen time can decrease, and sometimes I need day off. Because if you put me into a fixity of budget that you have to achieve the goal by doing the same work every single day, I'm not a computer, neither you are. So you cannot attend every single client that is there with you who's asking, sir, I need to deposit my money. Not everybody is going to require the same amount of time. Not everybody is going to require the same amount of efforts. So that means you will have to understand that the budget is related to human touch as well. That practicality is definitely required. What is the purpose of budget manual? To record actual performance budget under control. Okay, ठीक है. Budgetary control. To compile various types of information. Budget manual. Budget manual is just like you buy a toy and the details of how to assemble the toy, how to play with it, what are the rules, everything is written in the manual. To provide the instructions and guidelines for the budget preparation and to submit the budgetary reports. In this case, the answer is C. It provides instructions and the guidelines for the budget preparation, everyone. That's the level of clarity it brings. What is the role of budgetary control? The controller is basically required to regulate the working. So to monitor or to prepare the budgetary control issues, to compile various types of information, or to serve as the secretary of the budget committee. The controller is basically to compile various information for budget preparation. He's going to monitor, he's going to review, he's going to prepare everything all together for this purpose. Hello everyone, welcome to Officer 24/7. My name is Niharika Walia Bhatnagar and I'm with you with the area of AFM, Accounting and Financial Management for Bankers. So everyone, what are we talking about today? Let's look at that specific area altogether. Budget and budgetary control. What is the fundamental difference between zero-based budgeting, ZBB, and conventional budgeting, everyone? Zero-based budgeting is and conventional budgeting. See, under conventional budgeting now, you and I will talk that this happened in the market. This is supposed to happen in the market. These are the trends that has been there in the market for so long. We talk about all these things. When we talk about these things, that's one of the basics that happen in the market. Now, if we talk about the specific area of conventional budgeting, you will say increase things by 10%, increase things by 20%. That's all we need to do, right? You will define that on the previous basis we can take up things. What if those previous bases are no more usable? They are no more utilizable. They are no more required. All these things can also happen. Market changes, dynamics changes, things changes altogether. Can I say that the things that were there earlier would go in the same way today as well? Probably not. If it won't be the same right now, so isn't it required that I prepare entirely new budget? We call this as zero-based budgeting. ZBB and conventional budgeting. Conventional budgeting means the budgeting technique which is old, which is based upon the prior assumptions. Done. ZBB starts from scratch without referring to the part. Conventional budgeting relies on the previous budget figures. Both ANB or ZBB incorporates a percentage increase from the previous year budget. When we talk about this specific topic, under ZBB and conventional budgeting, how do we specify? ZBB starts from scratch without giving a reference to the past. We don't even talk about the past at all. Done. So let's look at the next topic. In zero-based budgeting, what is the premise behind justifying every rupee of expenditure? Premise means these are not those premises that we work on right? This is basically the premise here, which is an assumption. There are certain things that you and I will assume to be the same. To maintain consistency with the past spending patterns, to accommodate automatic incorporation of the previous year's expenditures, or to evaluate the necessity and the value of each expense, or to increase the budget allocation without constraints. What's going to be the answer? Zero-based budgeting. What is the premise behind it? Oh, okay. When we talk about the premise behind justifying every rupees, the past is no more required. The point is the past spending patterns is not there anymore. At this point of time, the most important thing that comes is to evaluate the necessity of each expense. In the past, it was there. Maybe it was necessary at that point of time. What if it is not required anymore today? Don't we need to go through the changes then? The past is past. It's there for a reason. And it will remain there for a reason too. So in this case, the previous assumptions are all scrapped. So if the previous assumptions are all scrapped, we need to look into the future. Right? Chaliye. What concept of does the zero-based budgeting depart from compared to conventional budgeting? Under conventional budgeting, you say what was the expense in the last year? Acha, it was this much, then probably this year will be a little higher than this. That's the basic maths they do. In this case, the mathematics changes. In this case, we talk about it that things can change. Right? Things don't remain the same. That is to be covered under this. So incremental budgeting, historical budgeting, strategic or long term. In this case, it is the incremental budgeting. That whatever the value was for the last year, it would be slightly more than the previous years. That kind of consent that we give to each other is to be covered in this area. Right? Done. What is the primary characteristic of zero-based budgeting according to CIMA London? CIMA is basically the Institute of Costs and Cost Management. So this is a very reputed organization. It refers to the historical budget data. It requires fresh rationale for each program inclusion. It automatically incorporates previous year budgets or focuses solely on budget objectives. When we talk about ZBB or zero-based budgeting, it talks about it requires fresh rationale for each inclusion. ZBB says that whatever was there in the past, it is in the past for a reason, that it is no longer usable. So find something which is usable. That is the basic aim of this particular process, everyone. Got the idea? So in this case, it is only and only it requires whatever the previous assumptions were, they were all wrong. For example, whatever the particular trend was before COVID, that trend is now gone. The requirements, the things, whatever they were, that thing is gone now. Earlier, it was definitely not there. Now, it has definitely changed over the period of time. Right? They have looked forward towards fresh rationale. Matlab, whatever assumptions were pre-COVID era, that was different. But after COVID, the things went more towards internet. Now things are more towards the basics of internet, and earlier they weren't. So those basic things happened. Now, what is the main focus of program budget? Everyone? The program budget can be said to be historical spending patterns, or detailed insight into specific activities, or overall organizational objectives, or maximizing profits. What's going to be the answer? In this case, I think program budget is basically the budget which is applicable only on one specific area. So it is detailed insight into specific activities. I created a program for a launch that is to be done recently. So if the launch is to be done recently or in a little day or two, then it is to be considered here, na? That is why program budget is specifically related to one specific area. For example, if I say it is related to the area of a budget related to, say, the budget is related to the specific purpose of launching of a product. If I'm launching a new product and the market is absolutely astonished about it, so then that would be considered here, na? To set the direction of the for the organization. So that is covered in their program. Now the next question is, what is the purpose of budgetary control? See, if I look at the budget, I saw there's something happening bad in the budget. There are certain glitches, there are certain tweaks which are required to set the direction for the organization, to coordinate various functions within the organization, to monitor actual achievements against set targets, to prepare budgets from scratch. In this case, the answer would be to monitor actual achievements against the set targets. That is to monitor actual achievement against the set targets. Then monetary control, see, budgetary control is trying to control whatever bad is happening. Whatever is not beneficial for us or whatever is happening is not as per our requirement. And next point, which type of budgeting starts with planning? The planning exercise from scratch without relying on the previous achievements. We're not even looking at what we had in the previous times. Functional budget, fixed budget, flexible, or zero-based budgeting. Zero-based budgeting doesn't even care about what was there in the past. Functional budget is based upon only the selling price, only the purchase price based. And fixed budget is basically the budget which talks about one specific amount of activity. It doesn't talk about the entire organization, but on a specific note they are talking about. Flexible budgets are those budgets which keeps on changing with the change in the output. ZBB or zero-based budgeting is that kind of budgeting which talks about the previous assumptions have to be left behind. We are talking about absolutely new way of working which affects the organization. That is ZBB. Next point, budget is a plan expressed in monetary terms, physical units only, both money and physical units, neither money terms or nor the physical units. Everyone? Budget is a plan expressed. See, budget is a plan which can be expressed in both the areas. If it's a production budget, I'll talk about the production area. I'll talk about how much is being produced. है ना? That is to be covered in this specific area altogether. Then budgetary plans are the plans which can be blended into anything. They can be based upon the present number of units. It can be based upon the future budgets that we are, the present number of units we are looking at. We're looking at the monetary value that we are getting in the future there. है ना? So I will go for both money terms as well as the physical units. The budget in which the each of the constituent part needs fresh rationale for its inclusion in that year's budget is known as flexible budget, performance budget, ZBB, or none. Fresh rationale, everyone. That means the previous rationales weren't really good or they aren't to be used. So in this case, the answer is going to be zero-based budgeting. Zero-based budget. That means the previous budgets have to be set aside. Whatever they meant, whatever they were in the past, and that's why they should be left behind. Done? Everyone, if you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, then please hurry up and subscribe to the channel right away, because time is taking away, and obviously we're coming up with more and more resources and more classes based upon our examination. So please be actively involved in our courses so that you can get all the particular content, whatever is for paid, whatever is for free, at the right time. How does a flexible budget accommodate changes in activity level? By keeping costs fixed regardless of the change in activity, by recognizing only the variable cost, by adjusting cost for any level, or by ignoring differences between the fixed, semi-fixed, and semi-variable cost. Everyone, variable and semi-variable. It has just been called semi-fixed, but it is actually the variable costing. See, one part is always varying, one part is always fixed, and one part is always something which can vary slightly. Not completely, but slightly it can vary and slightly it can be fixed. This kind of thing is to be considered here. है ना? Done? चलिए. How does the flexible budget accommodate in the activity level? Flexible budget says that we can work at different levels. We won't work at one particular level. By keeping fixed costs fixed regardless of change in activity, it changes if I'm producing 10,000 units, then I produce 20, then I produce 30. Or by recognizing only the variable cost, if you're recognizing only the variable, that means you are leaving one particular part altogether, which is definitely not correct. Isn't it, everyone? So in this case, what's going to be the answer? That is by adjusting the cost of level of activity. Done? Next point. How is the fixed budget typically established in the terms of time frame? Fixed budgets have one specific unit which is defined. Everything has been defined in advance, right? In terms of for a short period where actual and budgeted are expected to differ, for a long period to accommodate potential change, or for a specific output level without considering changes, or for a flexible time frame. What's going to be the answer, everyone? When we talk about the how flexible budget, now fixed budget is based upon the same thing for a given point of time because things change when the timing changes. So in this case, the correct answer is going to be for a specific planned output level without considering any changes. You don't consider a single change, but you just say that these things are going to be the same over the period of time. Welcome to Upsala 24/7. My name is Niharika Walia Bhatnagar and I'm with you with the area of accounting and financial management for bankers. Everyone, our Crash Course 2.0 is being launched. Number 2, our numerical batch in the bilingual is coming up. So if you are planning to purchase our courses, then hurry up and do it as early as possible. And there's a strong reason behind it. I hope you know that our courses are currently having 80% discount and our Mahapack is having 80% discount and double validity. So if you are planning to purchase our courses, then hurry up and check it out right away because this kind of opportunity will not come again and again, right? So when you have 80% discount, then you should really grab the offer, and double validity is a win-win situation again. So if you're planning, then hurry up and check it out on our website, on our app right away. If you're going through app, then you will get 80% discount. If you're going through website, you will get 79%. That means 1% extra if you're going through our app. Acha, one more thing everyone, if I have to tell you about which particular course to pick, as we already look into the matter in pros and cons manner, and I think I belong to the area of accounting only, so then we look at the things from the financial investment point of view as well. So in the investment point of view, if I tell you, anybody who's preparing for the examination, what are the things that you might be looking forward to? I think as a student, if I have to look forward to things, then the very first thing that I'll look at is, okay, the very first thing that I look at is number 1, chaliye. When we talk about the number first point, that would be, as a student, I would look at the fact that what are the courses that are available. I need a revision batch. I need a, if I have not prepared well, I need a full-fledged batch. Then I need a crash course. And of course, if possible, I want a revision batch as well. Revision batch for the last day. That means in the last week when I have to go through the point of examination, then just before the exam, I need some time. Along with this, I would want in case I get troubled in terms of numerical area, how do I cope up with it? So keeping all these things in our mind, I think the best thing that you can look forward to for JIB May 2024 is JIB Mahapack 2.0. Why do I say Mahapack 2.0? Under Mahapack 2.0, you get it for 6898.95. I think this is a cool price, but you know, you can reduce it further. You can reduce it to up to 6,000 rupees. What you need to do is go on to the area of Y541 and apply it. As soon as you apply the code Y541, you will get a discount of 80% here. 79% is available here. 1% extra if you're using the app. You'll get it for 6,000. So 6,000 rupees you're getting our Maha pack, which includes revision batch, numerical batch, our crash courses, our current video courses, and bilingual English medium test series, everything included. Not even a single thing is left out if you're planning to purchase our courses there. So I think if you're planning, then hurry up and check it out on our website, on our app right away. Don't forget to use the code Y541 and get it, because in this particular win-win situation, you have test series and ebooks as well. Individual courses, if you're going to buy, they are going to sound a little costly at this point of time. Why? Because at this point of time, our Mahapack is at the lowest cost and the maximum validity. So if you look at the other plans only, right? So this is our crash course. If I look at the crash course, this is our English medium crash course. If you're planning to buy our crash course only, you can definitely go ahead and use the code Y541. Apply it. You will get it for 4179. 4199.79. Now this is the particular amount. You can reduce it further by using 1% extra discount. This will cost around 4K, but if you it cost around 4K, it's just for 6 months. You're getting 6,000. You are paying just 2,000 extra, and you are getting 6 months. And here you're just getting the crash course. You're getting the crash course, and what other facilities are there? You have test series and live classes and ebooks. But what about the specific area of the revision batch for the last numerical batch? If you want to practice doubt sessions, everything else that we are looking forward to, do you have to pay more? if you don't have to, doubt sessions is already covered in the courses, but what about other features now? Everybody looks to the forward to that. So that is why we have to be very, very clear that when we are taking all these crash courses, if all these things are jumbled up together and we can get the specific area of our Mahapack, then there is nothing better than Mahapack, because it includes every single benefit that you might look for. Okay, so that's one particular thing I would like to request you. Go ahead and purchase our JIB Mahapack right away. Chaliye, now let's come back to our topic. Acha, in the last class I started with the area of costing. So I thought let's cover it up from the basics. An overview of costing, cost and management accounting. When we talk about cost and management accounting, how do we specify? Cost and management accounting is talking about what is the cost that we are incurring. If I told you that pata hai, I bought a particular phone, my phone costed me rupees this, right? So for example, a random phone costed me around 63,000, right? So if it is an iPhone or a Samsung phone or the good phones that are coming right now, high-end good phones. So if I buy any of those phones, what is the actual cost? The company will definitely have a lower cost, and they are also spending a lot of money on advertising, and then it comes to us. So that transportation, logistics and the production cost, everything is considered, and then they make a good profit as well. So you need to know what is the cost being incurred on the production. Management accounting is about what? Management accounting is a situation where we are looking at the things from the point of view of decision making. See, management is being asked, ki, Hanchi, you said you should invest this much amount of money. We invested. The company invested. Where is the profit? So it's gonna hurt the company now altogether. That they are saying ki, Acha, I had to get the profit, but I haven't got the profit. So how do I justify myself? So management has to take decisions. They have to show their performances. They have to show the financial health of the company to the outsiders as well as insiders. They are never spared, to be very honest. So in that case, that's one particular area that they have to look at. So in this case, an overview of cost and management accounting is the topic that we are taking up. So everyone, first of all, share the session, like the session, and don't forget to subscribe our channel. And if you are planning, then purchase our courses right away. Enroll yourself in time so that you are there in the very first class. Okay. How is the meaning of cost different for a customer compared to a producer? Cost to us is definitely a different scenario altogether. Why? Cost is the purchase price for both customers and producers. No. If I am a consumer, I'll buy something, that is my cost. The raw material cost, conversion cost, that is the cost of the producer, isn't it? Both of them are going to have different kind of costing altogether. Right? The second point says cost is the expenditure incurred for producers and purchase price for consumers. That sounds a little better. Cost is the expenditure incurred for both of them. Again, both of them is not the point. In the expenditure or the purchase price is not the exact point that we should look forward to. Cost is the purchase price for producer, expenditure incurred for consumer. Nahin. Customer is always buying the thing. For him, it is a purchase price. Raw material is purchased, converted into finished goods. That is why if I talk about this specific area, then the correct answer is B. Right? Cost is an expenditure incurred for the producers. This is the amount they spent in order to make it ready to use. The purchase price for the consumers. Done. What is the main objective of cost accounting? To record financial transactions, to maximize revenue, to ascertain the cost of each product or service, or to conduct market research. What's going to be the answer, everyone? What is the main objective of cost accounting? The main objective is to actually find out the expenditure that we are doing, to ascertain the cost. ठीक है ना? To ascertain the cost of each product or service. Which example illustrates the semi-variable cost? Such a semi-variable have 2 points. They have semi-variable can be stated as something which is basically has a variable cost, variable quotient. It has a fixed portion, So that's why we cannot put it into one specific area. It is completely fixed. For example, earlier when there were landlines, I hope everybody would have seen it, right? So if I talk about our landline, my father had got a landline. So then initially I think he bought a particular landline, and that was from the company itself. So that means you pay a rental amount on the particular fixed amount as a rental for the phone, and then your usage charges are separate, right? That's how we had our landline. BSNL landlines used to be there. Then came our current scenarios where we have a fixed, I have a fixed bill, postpaid, fixed bill, prepaid, fixed amount. That is also there. है ना? This is how we define our fixity or a part. Do you see that earlier there was a fixed part and there was a variable part? These are called semi-variable. Done, everyone? So in this case, what's going to be the answer? Insurance premium for the factory building. Insurance premium for the factory building is already fixed amount, na? Then cost of engine directly proportional to the cars. Acha, cost of engines. Engines is basically the amount for the specific area. Even this is a fixed one. I cannot say this is pure variable. But then this is pure variable. If the number of cars are changing, then the cost is also changing. Cost of lubricants used in production process. You produce more, you need more lubricants. You produce less, you need more less. Then we have the admin cost, है ना? Administration department staffing cost which do not increase proportionately. अच्छा, admin department ना really they are working in the same way. Their cost doesn't really increase that way, है ना? With the production doublings, so they increase but not that much, because obviously when people are working, if you do not give them increment, why would they stick to your company? That's one point. Anyhow, what's the answer? The answer is C. Admin department staffing cost, because you increase their cost but not that gradually. It increases but not that much. Done. Done, everyone? Chaliye. What is the distinction between direct and indirect material cost? What do you mean by material cost, everyone? I think if I look at the topic of material cost means that specific cost which is related to the area of production material that we use. Okay. Then first is direct, which is related to the production altogether. Okay. Then indirect material cost is the one which is related to the area of production but indirectly. Indirectly means, as everyone, I am producing something. If I am producing something, then producing something is direct. I try to produce something, na, that is direct. But when I talk about the administration cost, the logistics, supply chain, all those things are indirect. है ना? So there are two different things. Direct material costs are essential for production, where indirect nahi, aisa nahi hai, these are not essential. How can I sell things without producing, and how can I sell things without telling people? So I think the first part is not something I can say that this is totally wrong. Totally right. Direct material are ancillary. Ancillary means additional. Do you really think the direct cost is additional? Production cost is never additional. We can never say that the production cost is additional. If production cost is additional, then what is the main thing? Right? Then while indirect cost of material are form part of finished products. No. Then comes direct material are traceable to the units. Yeah, this one is true that if I look at the particular product, acha everyone, if I look at a specific thing, I think one of the most important things are calculators. You know, if you look at the particular calci only, you can see this is a plastic, this is the specific calci that I'm using, the plastic material, how do we use it, the screens and everything. This is something that you can find out on the basis of number of units produced, while indirect cost cannot. Agreed again. If the particular brand has used their brand name, they have advertised themselves, then you cannot find that out. है ना? So in this case, one particular thing is definitely clear, that when we are talking about this area, you can trace one cost and you cannot trace the other. Right? Chaliye. Now let's look at the next question based upon this. What is the definition of cost accounting? Cost unit according to CIMA. CIMA is basically the cost in, this is the Institute of Management. Cost basically, this specific institute is in London, which is responsible for all the definitions which have come till date. So it plays a very, very important role in current scenario regarding the full forms, definitions, essentials, they are all given by them. This is basically the full form of CIMA is Chartered Institute of Management Accountants. So these people are responsible for, I think, defining most of the costing terms. Acha, where were we? We were looking at what is the definition of cost unit. Acha, cost unit is what? I produce calculators. So number of calculators produced is a number. If I produce we process dairy products. Dairy products like milk will be in liters, and if I get cottage cheese, or we call it paneer, है ना, that is in kgs. If I look at from the dairy products only, if I look at the sweets, they're in kg, है ना. So that means it will vary. The unit of weight or distance, a unit of product or service in relation to which the costs are ascertained, a unit of measurement commonly used in costing, or a unit of physical measurement like number, weight, area, etc. What's going to be the answer? The answer in this case is going to be a unit of product or service in relation to which the costs are ascertained. This will depend upon the particular material. This is not dependent upon anything else but the material altogether. Okay? Done. Chaliye, let's move on to the next question now. Acha, what is the method of costing used when costs are ascertained in the terms of specific jobs or orders? Batch costing, operation costing, job costing, or process costing. What is the method of costing used when cost is ascertained? Specific job means I gave you a particular order of preparing phone covers for me, and plain one, black. You decided, okay, ठीक है ma'am, that would be done, and that I defined the particular number of units as well. That means I'm being customized in my work. So that means that is job costing. Everything else is not based on the customization. For example, Adda would have got these red t-shirts specifically customized, and we would have got our logo printed, है ना? So in this case, that is job costing. Next question, what is the method of batch costing typically applied when the costs are ascertained in terms of specific jobs or orders, when a batch of similar products is considered one job, when products involve various operations, or when the cost of carrying out an operation in the total process need to be ascertained? When we talk about batch costing, Typically, if you look at the batch costing, one particular thing is produced in lots. So in this case, the answer is when a batch of a similar product is considered one job. Okay, that is to be considered here. Done, everyone? Last question for the day. Which method of costing is suitable for company producing motorcycles through continuous manufacturing? Continuous manufacturing means you are just manufacturing one particular thing altogether. Process costing, unit costing, service, or multiple or composite costing. Acha, in case of motorcycle, there's one particular thing that happens. It is unit or single output. Vesina, actually, I would like to change the answer. When we talk about motorcycles, na, this is related, since they have stated continuous manufacturing, then unit or single output costing is correct. But in actual, in terms of motorcycles or vehicles, they say the costing which is used is multiple. Things go through processes and then they are assembled. Things are put on the particular assembly line and then assembled. Things are basically customized as well sometimes. So this is basically not something which has one type of costing. So in this case, it is multiple type of costing involved. So if continuous wouldn't have been there, my answer would have been different.